Hey guys, Cam here with Emerson Property Management. Whoa, hair's getting a little crazy there. Every week I bring you tools, tactics, strategies, lessons I've learned, things that have helped me build up a sizable rental portfolio in about 2 years and now manage that portfolio. Today, y'all, I want to talk about why property managers fire owners. So if you're looking for a property manager, this might be a good thing to set some expectations. Or if you're having trouble with your property manager, maybe this might be why. And we don't really talk a lot about a property management companies firing owners. A lot of it's owners firing property management companies. And there's all different sorts of property management companies out there. And I'll talk a little bit about what makes a good fit for Emerson as a property management company for an owner, and then maybe some of the other companies that might be good fits for you or for your properties and how you work instead of with Emerson. So before we get into that, if you guys like this, find this stuff valuable, appreciate this stuff, just give us a like, subscribe, share it with somebody you think would find it valuable. If not, leave us some feedback below. Really appreciate the feedback. Constructive feedback is always super helpful. Okay, let's get into this. So why property managers fire owners? Quick and dirty, we've got 5 things here. These are probably the top ones. They're in no specific order. First one's high expectations. Now, and you can ask anybody that knows me, my fiance, my family, my friends, I have very high standards when it comes to things. So I am a pedantic, it aggravates people on certain things on how detail oriented I am. And I get that. I sometimes am overly detail oriented, but we have super high standards at Emerson. We have very high standards, but that doesn't mean that your expectations of what can be delivered should be unreasonable. And I'll give you one very clear example that happens time and time again. Owner comes in and says, my mortgage is $2,000 a month. So with your fee and all this other stuff, I need this property to rent at $2,500. Mr. and Mrs. Owner, I appreciate and totally understand what you're saying. Totally understand it. However, the market does not care what your mortgage is. Doesn't care whether it's a 3% mortgage or an 8% mortgage. The market rent will be what the market can bear. So this is one that comes up as a contention point a lot. I've got a high expectation. I think, and everybody does it, right? You think whatever you have is worth more than what everybody else has. Or, I did this, I spent this kind of money. The market doesn't care. I've seen so many owners over-improve properties as well, and they're not getting the return out of it. So just because you need the property to be at a certain rent price does not mean it's going to be there. And at Emerson, we don't allow you as the owner to set the rent price. And I've got a video, I've pulled all the data to show that. I'm actually letting you as an owner, I would be giving you a disservice. I would be doing you as an owner a disservice if I let you select the rent price. And I've got the data, you can watch that in that other video on why that is. So expectations. The other expectation I've heard, and sometimes this comes up if this owner is a big multifamily investor, is doing like weekly or monthly property walks or drive-bys. We've had owners ask us about, when are you guys going to be on site? I've got so many reasons on why we don't do that, but also it's just not reasonable. I mean, I would have to charge $500 to $1,000 a month to go out to a property every week. I mean, it would be totally insane. Also, super distracted to the tenant, super inefficient and unnecessary and overkill. So just make sure your expectations on what's reasonable are set, right? Just don't, we're not magicians. We're not supermen and women. We're property managers that know how to lease and manage properties and take care of them and handle tenants and reduce your liability amongst 1,000 other things that we do. But yeah, we can't just work magic. It's just unreasonable to say, here's a $1,200 property. We need you to rent it at $2,000. And we need to do that next week. It's just make sure you set expectations well. Excessive quotes. This comes up from time to time, and I know a lot of property managers get flack for it. I know property managers that get kickbacks from certain vendors. So I will not grab a quote unless it's a very specific situation under $1,000. By the time the vendor goes out, spends, and we're in Houston, right? So we spend 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour and a half driving over to the property, doing the quote and assessment and driving back. It's inefficient. So we're providing you with the best quote that we think, with the best vendor that we think for that job. So, obviously we get quotes at higher prices, and make readies, we get different quotes. But just be cognizant that if you're asking for a quote on a $75 or $100 or $500 thing, we're probably not going to do that. We're going to say this is the best one. It's a waste of time. We have to respect our vendors as well. Cheap. So as owners, we sometimes get owners who think of properties as like stocks or, a savings bond that you buy and then you just throw in the drawer and it brings you in money every month. Rental properties are not 100% passive. They're not without financial burdens. I mean, for lack of a better term, you have to put money into your rental property. Things break. The stock market is not going to ask you to fix the toilet. It's not going to ask you about repairing windows. Steve Jobs never called me up and asked me about any of that stuff. It's a very great passive, truly passive investment in the stock market, bonds, other asset types, or if you're an LP in some larger multifamily thing. But single family real estate, even LPs have cash calls. Even they have to bring up some money sometimes. You have something that comes up or need to do a remodel. So understand that on turns, if something happens and you have a hurricane or storm, you need to have some money set aside. Roofs go down. AC units go down. Piping breaks. It wears down over time. So just be prepared for that. Sometimes owners don't want to put any money into the property. And I've seen it where it's like a vicious cycle, right? It's like, okay, the owner's not getting top dollar on the rent. So they're like, damn it, I'm losing $100 a month. No, I don't want to tear out that carpet and put in a new flooring. In some regards, maybe we would offboard, but maybe it's borderline, we leave it alone. Well, now they still want to get the $2,000 a month. Well, it's got carpet, not LVP, not tile, not, whatever. It got lower finishes. You didn't want to do a bunch of the nicer finishes. So you're making less money. Then you have less money to put in the property. You have an AC that goes out or some major issue. And now you're selling to a wholesaler because you don't have the 5 or 10 grand to fix up the property. I never want our owners to be in the position where they have to sell to a wholesaler. Ever, ever, ever. So be cognizant of that. Making investments. It is an investment. You're going to have to continually add money to the property to make it perform at its highest and best use and gets you more money. The tenants stay longer. Our tenants stay on average 3 to 4 years. And the number one reason tenants leave is lack of attention to maintenance. Statistically, nationally, historically, it always comes up that it's maintenance. So if you're cheap or you're asking us, so if you're cheap on the property, or if you're continually battling us on our costs and our expenses and, can you cut your management fees? Can you take this bill off? Can you give me a credit? Some of those will get you fired. And the reason for that being is we are performing a service, right? We're out there every day. We're answering the phones. We're monitoring the maintenance. We're taking care of so many things that owners never see. And I was telling the team this the other day. There's a picture and it's a mother and father around their son or daughter or kids. And there's a bunch of arrows in their backs. And it just shows that the kids never see that. And that's honestly, it's kind of a, I know it's, that's super family oriented and whatnot, but that is a great analogy to what we do as property managers. We are your guardians, for lack of a better term. We're preventing all the arrows from the tenant issues, the lawyer issues, my God, I mean, it never ends with certain things from realtors and the city calling in for certain things, HOAs. I mean, all this stuff we're preventing, we're protecting you because we know the law, we have our lease written a certain way. So that's a long-winded way of saying we go through all that trouble. And if you're continuing to ask us for a discount, cut your fee, it gets old fast. If your boss came in and continued to tell you he was going to cut your salary, probably wouldn't be happy. That's the same way we look at it. And we don't have many owners that do that, but it does come up from time to time. Never reading statements. This is probably the biggest and most frequent one. We send out monthly owner statements per the property code on or around the 15th of the month. And from that, you have an itemized list of all your expenses. It lets you know kind of what's going on in your property. And, we send out videos and things on that so that you know where to find that. Receipts and invoices, all that's online that you can download 24/7. But we have owners who never read that, never take the time to read that, and then ask us those questions, want to send us an email, want to call us and talk through their statement. We will do that initially. We will walk you through statements. We'll make it so you understand 100%, but not understanding is different than not wanting to understand. So, again, it's a business. I wish we had enough time in the day to be able to service several hundred owners on the phone, but we don't. Your executive property manager does not have time to spend 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes on the phone with you answering a question that you could have read on your statement. That's another one. Okay, this is the number one that will get you on the naughty list, for lack of a better term. Treating us as employees. So this comes up from time to time. Hey, I want you guys, one, I'm going to tell you how much it's going to rent for. When are you guys doing the property inspection? The rekey needs to be done here. Why isn't this tenant approved? Hey, I want to accept that tenant. Hey, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to do that. You guys run over there and drop off my Xfinity box. The owner is trying to dictate stuff. This is, like I said, this is probably the number one biggest pet peeve of anyone. I don't know if you guys have ever painted before, but painting looks easy. Good painters make painting look so easy. Everybody thinks they can paint until they've actually painted a room. And then you go, God, that looks like shit. That's terrible. Look at those lines, look at the marks, look at this, look at that. I've got tape and I pull the tape off and the shit's on the trim and blah, 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 blah. So we make property management look easy. Good property managers make property management look easy. Because remember what I was talking about earlier with the guardians basically over you with all the arrows in our backs? You never see the problems. We're dealing with vendors. We're suing vendors. We're handling all that stuff. You never even see it. So to try to tell us our job and how to do things when we do more turns in probably a week than some owners do in their entire lives, when we do more AC systems than owners will ever do in their lives, hopefully. Roofs, foundations, screening tenants. We've screened over thousands of tenants. So just, it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't come in and try to tell somebody how to be a software engineer or how to do their job at any job, whether that's a blue collar job or a white collar job. I don't want to come in and tell you how to do your job. So everybody thinks they can do property management. That's easy and simple, but it's not. We build a lot of systems that we spend a lot of money on, a lot of experience, decades of experience building this stuff. And there's always a method to the madness. There's a reason behind why we do what we do to protect you as the owner. And sometimes that's protecting you from yourself. So again, no particular order, but those are the reasons. Again, I don't want this to come off as aggressive or, combative, but I just want owners to understand that maybe your expectations are too high. Maybe you're not putting money in your property. Maybe you're treating your property manager as an employee. Maybe you're not reading your statements. These are things that can help you have a better relationship with your property manager. And if this stuff like bugs you the crap out of you and you're like, no, I want 30 quotes at 60, even if it's $65. I want you guys to have that property turned over and leased in 3 days. Then maybe we're not a good company for you. And honestly, if some of the owner or some of your other property management companies are letting you do this stuff, I would be cognizant. I don't tell my doctor how to do stuff. I don't tell the architect how to do things, their job. You let people who are good at what they do what they do. So if you're having to tell your property manager what to do, you might want to look for a different property manager. Okay, y'all. Hey, I appreciate you tuning in. I'll see y'all next week. Thanks.